It's time for the opening crack, the sideshow to the D&D show we normally do, where we taste and rank some beer. Welcome, fellas.
Heyo.
Hi, everybody.
Damon's having a snack break.
Damon's here.
Remind
I'm
him.
here.
Snack break. Oh,
Phil is pouring a... is that a beer? I can't even tell.
Well,
There's a lot of foam and a little bit of beer.
I got criticized for this on one of our prior episodes, and I must say that this particular beer should not have this large of a head. So this was just a pour.
you have
so
this.
sorry.
But you have this unusual talent of pouring right down the middle of the glass and having this beautiful head at the top, and not having a glass full of
It
foam.
depends what we're pouring for. If I'm pouring for sound effect, you have to pour down the middle of the glass. If you're pouring for the appropriate amount of head, well, you have to get the angle right. But we don't.
The more you know.
Why am I talking about this? The expert should speak to this.
The more you know.
So what are we drinking tonight? Ross, give us an introduction.
We are drinking
Beer.
The sea salt. Yes, the sea salt and lime Supra Deluxe premium lager from Modist Brewing in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Doesn't Toyota make a Supra?
Skull Vikings. Yeah, they do. You're
Toyota Supra.
right.
Sorry.
Forgot about that.
Oh.
Skull Vikings. Any Vikings fans in here? Nope, me either.
I'm stuck
Okay.
on Need for Speed now, but it's fine.
Okay. Well,
So first,
yes.
first thoughts
Super.
on this one. What's it taste like?
Um,
Bonus points for
Hold on.
beer.
1 second.
So I will say it's got a weird funk up front to me.
Funk.
But
Explain funk.
I don't know. It's just something that like it's sea salt and lime. So I expect like a very florally smell to it. And it's just not that smell. It smells rightfully so more like sake does. And we talked about this, a little bit about this pre-show, that maybe it's the rice. We'll talk about that too also here in a minute. But then I will say that like after it sits there for a minute, I do get that floral lime at the end of this. A little bit of salt, not a ton to me.
yeah,
I
I
don't
agree.
mind
The
it.
lime comes through late. In the,
And strong.
yeah,
It's
oh, for
definitely there. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sure. Mhm.
Lime. I'd say slime. And like teeny tiny bit of salt. But mainly like lime. But yeah, the like fermented rice or whatever that kind of like initial like pound and smell is, like that hits you first and then you're like, "Ooh, okay, lime. It's all right."
And I don't think I would have thought sake until you said that. Until we were like really talking about that this was like a Japanese style lager.
So the description of this one calls it a dry, crisp Japanese style lager brewed with extra premium Pilsner malt, rice, and Sriracha Ace hops, and infused with lime and sea salt.
So I think to that point, right? So I can't say I've ever had a Japanese style lager that I know of, at least. But I also think like they're talking about that Pilsner piece of it. I pick up notes of that, definitely, but I actually like I would prefer this to just kind of a plain Pilsner. And I don't know if that's the lime or what's kind of coming through there, but it's like almost a Pilsner, but I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. To me, it's a little more pleasant than just a
Yeah.
plain Pilsner.
It's kind of like a Pilsner Plus,
Yeah, that's
right?
fair.
Like that. There's a little bit of value add to it.
It's
All
kinda
about
like-
those numbers, baby.
It's kind of like being a Pilsner it's not quite just a Pilsner. It's kind of its own unique category,
Huh.
being a Japanese style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you read dry, crisp. I would say that those are definitely accurate
Yep.
to it, which is typical of a Pilsner or really any lager. That lager yeast gives it that crisp, sort of clean finish to it. So, and can give it that kind of dry mouthfeel as well. So,
You know, the more that I think about it, I don't know if like the rice is causing that slight weirdness up front that I was tasting. It might just be that I'm not used to like this particular style of lager. And the only reason I say that is because it wasn't that long ago that like Bud Light and Coors Light like were arguing back and forth because one used rice and the other one didn't. Like you didn't taste that in those beers necessarily. And it could be that they're using different malt too, or whatever the case is on those specific beers. But it just makes you think that maybe it's not the rice. Maybe it's just that viewing this from when I thought sea salt and lime, I start viewing it immediately from the lens of like a Mexican style lager, like a Corona with a lime in it or something like that. And maybe that's not. It's confusing my palate almost.
Yeah.
It's close to that, but it's different. Like my only real experience with these is like if you go get sushi and you have a beer with it, a lot of times you can get a Japanese style beer there, but those are different than this. This is American made, but it's a Japanese style.
Right.
Well, I feel like a lot of those beers too that you do order there also aren't like sea salt and lime.
That's
Right.
the thing that's
Yeah.
interesting with this one. Yeah, because like I've had a Japanese lager before in that same.
They're always
Kinda-
lagers, but they're
Yeah.
not sea
Usually
salt and
flavored.
lime.
No,
by
yeah,
any means.
that's the difference. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, the lime really makes me want to have a fish taco.
Mm.
Ooh,
Yeah, I think you're right.
I'm getting hungry now.
I know.
The red cabbage slaw.
Oh man,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, who's ordering?
If only.
I don't know where there's a good place to get those.
So ABVs is 5%, no IBUs, like no bitterness really at all to this one. It's a pretty smooth lager.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Japanese rice is the description of the malt. Very light beer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess I don't know about Japanese rice, but rice is a really common adjunct to add to beer, and the nice things about rice is that it gives you sugar for which you need to make alcohol eventually, but it also doesn't add really any sort of body to the beer. So like the beer can still feel light and refreshing, but still have alcohol
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
in it,
yeah.
essentially. So like almost all of your like American Pilsners oftentimes use rice
Sure.
in them as a fermentable.
Well, you think about ABV, right? Like it's not that different from like a half, but this feels so much lighter,
Right.
and that's the difference between like the rice versus the wheat.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
And it keeps, and also the color.
Yeah.
Right. Like rice has essentially no color to it, so it keeps it really clear. You can.
I can see Damon
you can
through
see
this
through-
cup. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like a weird sort of outline, but I can see through it.
Yeah.
For those of you not in the room, Phil is holding his cup up, spying Damon through the beer.
Very
Nice and clear.
roguelike.
Mm-hmm.
This just makes you think, and not to go on too far of a tangent here, but there there was
why?
the,
Let's farther the tangent, the better.
Let's go deep in the rabbit
let's
hole.
go on a tangent here because this really irritated me a couple years ago, and this is why. And Brett and I work in marketing, but this is also why marketing sucks because it's like Coors and Bud fought over the fact that they were adding rice to their beer, which apparently is pretty common practice. But then they were also, if you look at any of their marketing now, they're also like, we cold lager our beers. Well, no crap, everybody has to cold lager their beers because that's how you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just stupid things like that. Sorry, tangent over.
But those mountains are blue on one can, and they are
And on the other, damn right.
Yeah, they're red on the other one.
So if we're going to take this beer and pluck it out of our world and plop it into D&D world, where would you find this beer? Ross, where are you going to take us?
Well, this is somewhere along the southern part of the Sword Coast. I really didn't come up with a specific location, but this is the Sandy Seabreeze Cider by Kazi no Umi Brewing. Throw in some Japanese language here. Kazi no Umi means wind of the sea, which I thought was very
That's pretty fitting.
nice. So, yes, thank you. Uh-oh.
Phil, where are you going?
I thought you had,
Oh, I thought you had a question.
I'm like, well, where's this maybe gonna go? Here we
there we
go.
go.
Buckle up.
You're off the hook for now.
So I'm going to call this a particular brew the Selkie Seltzer. So obviously we think this is light if Ross thinks it's a cider and I think it's a seltzer. But you can pick up the Selkie Seltzer at Jimmy's Juice Joint.
Ooh.
No other description needed.
It's a long
You
way.
don't want to know about Jimmy.
Jimmy's
There
juice.
is an entire backstory for Jimmy that will come out in a future episode.
I feel like that's a brand of weed.
I feel like whatever class review we're going to be next is going to be Jimmy.
Jimmy's-
And we're just going to fit him
Jimmy's
in there
Juice
somehow.
Joint.
Damon, where are you taking us?
We're going to the name of the establishment is the Seaside.
Ooh.
This is the name of it.
Very appropriate.
The name of the drink is. Hold on, let me try to read my handwriting. I got it. I figured it out. Don't worry about it. Is Drake's Demise.
Ooh.
Is the name of it. That sort of like slightly sort of funky smell made me think of demise.
Sure.
in some ways.
And in your substantial knowledge of Dungeons and Dragons, do you know what a Drake is?
Oh, I was thinking of just a guy's
The
name.
guy named Drake. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you have
But
to
isn't a
hit on
Drake-
an actual monster.
Is a Drake a dragon?
Pseudo, yeah. It doesn't have the capabilities to fly. It's more like a land lizard, land dragon in essence. But yeah.
Like a Gila monster.
Yeah.
That was my nickname
There
in
you
high
go.
school, Land Lizard.
Why?
I don't know.
That's fantastic.
Speaking of Ross's backstory, I'm going to one of Ross's favorite places, Baldur's Gate. There you go.
I haven't been there in a while.
Oh. Feeling the pressure, huh? So we are going to we're going to Baldur's Gate to the Nettle and Nagiri, which is a tiny little pop-up shop on the docks at Baldur's Gate, selling sushi. And this beer is called the Drunken Marlin, sold out of a little sushi stand on the side of the docks in Baldur's Gate.
I like it.
Bonus crack.
Oh,
All I can think of is I don't think I would eat any fish that came out of anywhere near Baldur's Gate because you know they throw their poop in the water.
I'm not saying this thing is expensive. That might be what the
cheap
smell,
stuff.
Damon,
It's free
is
season.
like.
That's the
Yeah, that
fuck.
could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah.
How do you know this? Is there like a cut scene where they all throw their poop in the
I
water?
mean, I'm just assuming there's probably not a whole lot of plumbing going on. And
So why do you always go there?
Because it's where we've been.
Oh.
You know, it's all good.
He likes the stank.
The lower city. You said by the docks. I like the stank. Yeah.
Is it the upper city or lower city?
You said by the docks. So it's lower city.
It's got to be
they're
right
definitely
next to
throwing their crap.
the
in the water.
lower lantern.
The lowest lantern.
Is that what we had to go with? I thought it was the low lantern and the lower lantern.
Yeah, our group went.
We
yeah.
haven't hit the lowest lantern yet.
Oh.
TBD.
Not yet.
This is outside of the lowest lantern. This is sushi that was formerly prepared in the upper city and then was delivered to the lower city and then has sat there for a few days
Yeah.
and then delivered to the lowest lantern.
Day old sushi.
Yeah.
So this is like
It
day
is
old
multiple-
gas station sushi.
Multiple day old sushi. But
Do they-
if we're
Do they ferment the sushi?
it happens.
I mean, I bet you could. All right.
If it sits there long enough, it
Yeah.
probably could.
I mean,
Yeah.
is it like they open the box and you're like, oh, that's fish?
Is it? Or is it just fish oil?
Ooh,
They're so close to the dock, like they're on the docks. They can't tell. Everything just blends together at that point.
sure.
So if we're going to compare this to our challenge rating, so we go from a challenge rating 1, which is more like a cream ale or kind of like fighting a goblin, all the way up to challenge rating 20. So it's like an adult bronze dragon. So a really tough beer to be able to jump into the world of beer. Where are you going to put this one on the challenge rating? Phil, where are you
Ooh.
taking us?
You know, I was initially thinking, like, personally, this beer's pretty palatable. It's not challenging to drink from typically the types of beer that I would drink. However, if you're kind of like trying to get into beer, want to try some different things, I think this is probably going to be around the 8-ish, 9-ish range. It's not typical. There are a couple components to that, right? Actually, as I'm thinking about it, I'm bumping it to an 11.
Ooh,
Do it. Go
changing
for
it
it.
up.
I think if you just went in for like a sniff of this beer to like kind of taste it at first, you would be off put initially.
Mhm.
I don't want you to be deterred by that. You should try it. And then as you take your initial sip, you're going to be like, that's kind of interesting, right? Like that initial hit. And then immediately after that, you kind of get flooded by lime. And it's pleasant and it's refreshing and I enjoy it. But I think if you're not kind of a adventurous beer drinker especially, this could be pretty off-turning to you initially. So I'm not even sure 11's a high enough number, but that's where I'm gonna stay. I'll stick there, and
Okay.
those are my reasons.
Damon, how high are you?
Oh no, I'm next.
Yep. How high are you going?
I thought we were
Because
going
it's
to-
gotta
You
be-
thought we were going left or right.
No.
We're going
we're
clockwise order.
We're jumping around the room,
Ooh boy.
and this is going to be a high number.
So going along with some of Phil's reasoning of, I'm gonna give this a 15,
I knew it.
Wow.
and I think part of that is it's all because of context, right? Like we are in the midst of Middle America, and the idea that they are trying to emulate flavors from Japan, and this is emulating a Japanese lager is like, even us in this room, like we don't have a lot of experience with these flavors, right? And with this sort of a flavor profile. And so walking right into it without that experience, without that taste knowledge base, I suppose, is going to be a different sort of a thing. And to give it a, it's always a good idea to smell something before you eat or drink it.
50%.
Right. That first smell is kind of funky.
Yeah.
And you kind of sort of, okay, what's going on with this beer? And again, this is not to say it's not a good beer. I think it is a good beer, but I don't think that it greets you as warmly as other beers. So, what did I say? 15?
15.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
Ross, you're sniffing the can over there.
I
What do
don't
you
know. I
get?
feel like these two are sniffing something. I think that's way too high. I think
Really?
Yeah.
Your smeller's broken.
No, I don't think so at all.
Go to the smeller doctor.
And my reasoning for this kind of goes back to the last episode. We were talking about how people approach these beers. And if it's like, I see this Japanese lager is not turning me off. And if I see sea salt and lime, I'm thinking Mexican lager. So I'm like, in terms of like, would I order this off of a menu, just reading a description? I think absolutely. And then if I smell it, I mean, at that point I've ordered it, take a drink. And once I get past that initial taste, it's a good beer. I agree 100% with you guys that it's there. The floralness at the end, like, is the saving grace after the smell. I think this is no higher than a 6.
Ross does not pour out beers.
Hold on a second. You sniff that can and you tell me like you're not like what the
I mean,
Here's the thing: the
Really?
more I smell it, I don't find it as offensive as I did when we first poured it.
but when you first poured it,
Sure, but it's like
that's the question. That's when you first
Man,
approached
I
it.
don't know. I still
I-
sniff it and I'm like, I'm not sure about
I
that.
don't think. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with you because I led off this this episode talking about the funk at the front of this. But it's like,
Yeah, you were like, "Hey, all the funk's up front."
but like
As a
if
direct
I,
quote.
If I were, I did say that.
Let's play it back. No.
I may have been wrong. At least in my own personal opinion. Just because it's like, especially if I would order this off the tap, I don't know if I would get that smell as much. So it's like, this could be one of those beers where out of the can versus out of the tap could affect this too. And my guess is that they definitely serve this off the tap in Minnesota. It's not just a canned beer, whereas a lot of actual imported beer, we're going to be drinking out of a bottle or a can.
I love that you can like drive to Minnesota and order a Japanese style.
Right.
Yeah, that's great.
Like that's pretty awesome.
So just my humble opinion, I just think it's no higher than a 6. I agree. The funk was a little weird at first, but it mellowed out for me.
So surprisingly, I'm going to agree with Ross.
Holy
No.
I know this never happens. I'm going to go with a 5. I think this is very similar to like a Corona, just with like a very juicy lime.
I would agree with that.
Like it's very approachable for a lot of people that like the Mexican style beers that want to branch out a little bit further from those and are looking for something a little bit different. This is a little bit different from that, but still approachable for you. And it's nowhere near a dark beer or a intimidating beer. This is still a light beer that's very approachable. A little bit of a funk up in the smell, but I think you can do it. Try it. So what do we say? Yay? nay? Are you going to go for another one of these? Damon.
Don't start
So
with
you're gonna
me.
put Damon on the
I
spot,
knew
aren't you? I could tell.
Always
you
start
were
with
gonna
him. Always
start
start
with
with
me.
Damon.
It's a big old no.
This is gosh, how's the question phrased again?
Yay or nay?
Oh, that's it. Okay.
This
If
is
that's
one of those. Is it the only thing in the fridge question?
yeah, if that's the question, this is a nay for me.
Okay.
Which is not. I don't think that it's a bad beer by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not really for me. This is not a Damon beer, as we've probably demonstrated.
Couldn't have guessed. Ross, what do you think?
Gosh, I mean, I'm gonna agree with you twice in one episode. This is
Oh,
great.
no.
But it's like I know you don't care for cream ales, and I'm getting on board with that. This is not in that wheelhouse, though. I think this is one, like, if it's 100 degrees out, I would happily crack one of these, or 3 or 4 of these, and have it anytime. I'm 100% on.
That's
board
a
with that.
pretty unique circumstance.
100 degree.
So the circumstance under which you
where
will
do you
drink more
live?
of
Where do
this.
you live?
The circumstance under which you will drink more of this is if it's 100 degrees.
We do live in Nebraska. That's not that uncommon.
Yeah, but he
okay,
was
okay.
just
Let me
like-
back that off. Let's say if it's 85 plus.
Okay. All right.
So anywhere from May to August, I would happily crack multiples of these.
Phil, what are you saying?
I think this might be a first for me, but on a regular basis, this would probably be a nay for me, actually. To Damon's point too, it's not that I don't dislike the beer, but it's not something I feel like I need to buy again and that I would go for. I would pick differently.
Yeah.
That's all.
I am going to say nay.
What?
Even with a
Wow.
5.
You're wrong, Ross.
No, 100% right. I'm the only one right.
Even with the 5, I think this one could be done better.
Hmm.
Like it's really close to being good. It's just not quite there.
Yeah. All right.
The smell kind of lingers.
I don't know what that is. Yeah.
So stand by for our Japanese lager episode.
Oh, please.
Now we're gonna have to do a series on Japanese
Oh,
lagers
that would be fun.
to figure out if it's
That would-
just
yeah.
us, if we're the problem.
Yeah. Which we are.
Yeah, I'm sure we are.
Mm-hmm.
This has been Super Deluxe Lime, Sea Salt and Lime Premium Lager from Modist Brewing Company out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. You can find them at modistbrewing.com. That's going to do it for this episode. Stay tuned for more beer reviews in the future. You can check out our regular show, Bards and Barrels, anywhere podcasts can be found. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Bards and Barrels. Until next time, may your dice be hot and your beer be cold.